Welcome back. On today's episode, I will be discussing and predicting the NBA Finals. I will also be discussing the ridiculous conversation happening right now about Abdul Carter criticizing Jackson Dart's really stupid decision to attend a Trump rally. And finally, I will be discussing some of my grievances with how, in particular, left commentators are discussing Graham Plattner and his candidacy, and also how they're discussing some of these primaries coming up in June. But stay tuned after the break, and I'll be predicting the finals. All right, welcome back. I think this year's finals is going to be one of the more highly anticipated and talked about finals in recent history. The Spurs have, Wemby is probably as good or as big of a young star that the NBA's had probably since LeBron. Maybe you could argue Curry or Durant, but he has far higher potential than either of them. He has like legitimate top five all-time potential if he can stay healthy and continue to get better. He's arguably the greatest defensive player ever already. His impact on that side of the floor, you you actually can't really like compute. There's no stats to really show just how many shots he alters. He sometimes doesn't even pick up a ton of blocks or steals because people just don't shoot the ball when they drive and get into the paint. They just turn around and are like, nope. The shots that they've been taking since they were 5 years old, for the first time in their lives, basically, they're driving in a shot that they've always been able to take and hit at a high clip. They just can't. They have to restart the offense. No team's ever in rhythm offensively. The Thunder had like 5 of their worst 9 games offensively in terms of offensive efficiency rating in that Spurs series or in the Spurs series the whole year. And that Thunder team's really good. And what he was able to do defensively against them is just stuff we've never seen before. And the amount of shots he alters, even if he doesn't get his hand on it, where people have to just put such a ridiculous amount of arc on a shot to try to get over his reach that they end up like airballing layups. Or, like I said, they just have to abandon the shot altogether and they're forced to pass out, and then they end up with a bad or highly contested shot at the end of the shot clock. He just has such an impact on that side of the floor that the sky's the limit here, and we've just never seen anything like it. And him being in the finals this early in his career at 22, he joins a really young kind of specialist of guys here with like LeBron and Magic Johnson. Like he's really among some pretty legendary names here with what he's accomplished already in his career. And if he's able to get this done, he enters a whole new list of guys. And it's not just him. I mean, they have several young superstar level, at least potential players. I mean, I think Dylan Harper has like first team All NBA potential. The way he's able to play, he's a great athlete, but he's super smart as well. How he plays off of 2 feet and when he gets into the paint and is able to, his ability to get shots off and finish around the rim is something really special. He's a different kind of player than Kyrie Irving, obviously. He's a more powerful player, a little less creative. I mean, no one finishes like Kyrie under the rim, but he's one of the better guards I've ever seen, especially at a young age, finishing around the rim. His shots continuing to improve. He's a really smart player. He defends his ass off. Obviously, Steph Castle is an extremely tough guy. He's super mature for his age. He still turns the ball over a little too much. I don't think he's like a true legit point guard. I think Dylan Harper will probably take over that role long term. But he's super tough. He's mature. He defends super hard. His shots continuing to improve. De'Aaron Fox, obviously, he's the veteran here. This is a big finals for him. He's been banged up, but I thought he played pretty well in Game 7, which is encouraging because I think they need him. His speed and ability to beat people off the dribble and get it in the paint, get his own shot off or kick out for open shooters. He really helps this team. He can get a shot. He can create his own shot at the end of the game as well, which is something I think some of these younger guys struggle with. So he's a huge asset here. Obviously, Devin Vassell had a huge series. He's improved. He's not just like a 3-and-D wing guard now. He's better than that. He's a real impactful player you have to game plan around. Champagne's shooting kind of comes and goes, but when he's on, he's super valuable. Keldon Johnson brings him something. Carter Bryant looks like he's going to have pretty high floor, or high floor certainly, but I think his ceiling is actually pretty high as well long term. So they just have a lot of really good young players that if they're able to win this finals, I think we're just going to be in this San Antonio era again right after we got out of one in the 2000s, the 2010s, where it felt like they were so consistent and so good for so long. To be already back there, less basically 10 years later, is pretty crazy. And I think we're there. These guys are just so smart and they're so talented and they're so mature for their age that I don't really see a whole lot of reasons why outside of injuries, I don't really see a way that they're not going to be a consistent threat to win the West and win the title, at least for the next like 5 or 6 years, potentially even longer. And then on the Knicks side, obviously you have a jewel of the league, cornerstone franchise. They're in many ways, they're kind of like the Cubs of the NBA, where they're one of the 5 most important teams in the league. They're in a massive, important city. But before 2016, the Cubs hadn't won in 108 years. The Knicks haven't won in forever as well. They're talked about obviously because they're hugely famous in important cities, but they're kind of the lovable losers where every year they self-implode. The Knicks for a long time were very poorly run. They didn't win a playoff series for years. Whenever they made like a big splashy move, like trading for Carmelo, it never really worked out. They whiffed on several draft picks. They've just had a really chaotic 21st century. And that Jalen Brunson signing coming over from the Mavs, I think even people who are really high on him, which I was coming out of college, I thought he was amazing at Villanova, but I never thought this would happen. I think even people who are high on him didn't think that, this was possible. He's become like a real legit closer. He's one of the best guards in the league. His shot making is at a really high level. I think he just straight up outperformed Donovan Mitchell, who going into this series, I still think I would have given the edge to Donovan Mitchell just physically. I think he's a far better athlete. So I give him the edge there, but Brunson outperformed him and clearly showed he was a better player and you can build around him to win. He could potentially be the best player on a finals winning team, which I don't think you could say for Mitchell or many other guys in the league, quite frankly. And then you have Cat, who's been super good, right? At least so far in the playoffs. We'll see. I don't trust him. He's one of the players I trust the least of any superstar in the league. So I would not be shocked if he struggles against Wemby a little bit. And his shooting, I think he'll shoot pretty well from the perimeter. I think he is the greatest shooting big man in NBA history, like he said. But I would be a little cautious if he's going to really find a whole lot of success under the rim. I think Wemby's length is going to impact him. And I don't think he's going to rebound as well as he had been in previous series so far in the playoffs. Mitchell Robinson's finger injury obviously is a big deal. I think one of the ways you can impact or at least mitigate Wemby's success, especially on the defensive end, is having a really good offensive rebounder who's athletic, who can get on the boards. Because if Wemby's going to commit to try to block a shot, having someone who can clean up that miss if the ball hits the backboard and they can put it back in, that's going to at least make him think and process what's happening a little more than just automatic. As soon as someone's driving to the rim, I'm there, I'm going to block the shot. If there's someone behind him who's a threat to get the putback and to finish there, he has to at least think. Maybe he starts to kind of feint towards the shooter or the driver and stays back, which, could theoretically lead to an easier finish. I just think he's a big role there. Also defensive, really, on the rebounds. Mitchell Robinson's going to be absolutely vital because San Antonio, in the second half of Game 7, one of the keys to their win there really was their ability to get on the offensive boards. Not just Wemby. Their guards are really good rebounders. Their wings, they attack the glass really well. They're really good at putbacks. They finish pretty high rate there. I just think if the Knicks want to win the series, they're going to have to be successful on the boards. They cannot get out rebounded, and they're going to have to be good there. As far as, the wings for Knicks, I think OG Anunoby, he seems healthier now. I think he's probably going to be less important than Mikal Bridges in this series. Even though I think OG's probably the better player more consistently. I just think Mikal, when he shoots well and he's aggressive offensively, the Knicks go to a whole new level. They need that fourth scoring option who can put the ball on the floor, attack closeouts, drive, and whether he pulls up the mid range or gets all the way to the bet bucket, they're going to need guys who can score. One of the Spurs' advantages in the series is they're on both ends. They're extremely good in the offensive end. They have several guys who are able to put the ball on the floor, drive, and create something for themselves or for others. They just have a lot of guys who can dribble, pass, and shoot. And the Knicks need OG and Mikal to be aggressive. They can't, if it turns into the Jalen Brunson show, I just think Spurs have too many guys they can throw at them. It's going to be too hard to get shots around the rim with Wemby back there. They need multiple players on the floor at the same time who can knock down threes at a high clip, who can also put the ball on the floor, finish at the rim, pull up in the mid-range, who can create shots for others, which is why I think they both have to have really good series to win. Josh Hart, it's going to be really interesting to see how much they play him because the Cavs, don't even get me started with them. Kenny Atkinson, I think, is one of the worst coaches in the league. I thought them shitting the bed in game one was a disgrace. They did not perform. I thought they quit basically halfway through game two. Really, they quit after game one, which is predictable. But one of the things they did find success with was they just ignored Josh Hart. They were able to leave Jared Allen or Evan Mobley in the paint. They ignored them, and they were able to, when they had some success in that series, they had an elite shot blocker underneath the rim who was able to clean up anything that got past the initial perimeter line of defense. Now, obviously, Wemby's a whole different level of a shot blocker. We've never seen anyone like him. So if they're able to do that, where they're just going to ignore Josh Hart, and Josh Hart does not make them pay shooting the ball from three, like we saw in the Oklahoma City series, they did that with Alex Caruso. At times with Lou Dort, but especially with Caruso, they said, we're just going to let him shoot threes, knock yourself out. Wemby's going to stay under the bucket. He's going to try to clean up anything on the boards. And in game one, Caruso shot the ball really well, and they almost won that game. I think Caruso's better than Hart. I would trust Caruso to make those threes more than Hart. I think they're going to leave Wemby off of Hart, and I don't trust Hart's going to be able to knock down enough of those threes to really make the Spurs pay for that. And I think that's going to be a problem. So I really question how much they're going to play him. But Hart's a smart player. He can dribble, pass. He's not a great shooter, but he's an intelligent guy who can flow, who can work in the flow of an offense. He's a good defender. He works hard. He takes charge as well. He's a pretty good screener. I think it hurts to not have him play. And then you have the Mitchell Robinson piece where even if he's healthy and they potentially go with like a double big lineup, that's interesting. The Spurs have Luke Cornett, so they have another center who I think will be better in this series than he was in the Thunder series. So I don't think they're going to have the same kind of advantage physically that they did in the Cavs series with how big the Spurs are in their front line. But part of the problem is the intentional fouling, kind of the hack-a-shack strategy on Mitchell Robinson, is a real problem. And if they just foul him, if they bring in Harrison Barnes and they foul, or Carter Bryant or someone, and they just foul Mitchell Robinson every time up the court, and he shoots at like 30-something% from the free throw line, that's going to be devastating for the Knicks. Because if you're getting at like most 1 point down every possession, but most times you're getting none, and no one else is in the flow of the offense, no one else is getting shots for a period of like 4 minutes, no one's going to be in rhythm. You're going to they're going to be in the bonus, which is advantage. But if they bring in one of, a player at the end of their bench just to foul Mitchell Robinson, none of their big players are going to be in foul trouble. It will be easier on the rest of the stars on the Spurs, who've just played a really tough 7-game series, because they'll be able to rest defensively if they're just going to foul Mitchell Robinson every time down the court. So I think, Mike Brown's going to have to be really careful with when they play Mitchell Robinson. I think we're going to see a lot of him playing at the last 2 minutes of a quarter when you can't intentionally foul people like that unless they have the ball. Um, so there's just a little chess piece like that, which I'm really excited to see. And the bench shooting for the Knicks, like if they shoot as well as they did so far in the playoffs, I think they really can win the series. They've just shot the ball so well. Guys like Landry Shamet, who's always been a pretty good 3-point shooter, but he's on a whole new level. If Miles McBride continues to shoot well, Jose Alvarado, I think, gives them good minutes. I'm a little worried with his lack of size in the series. I think he might get played off the court a little bit, but they still have guys like Jordan Clarkson, and they just have a lot of dudes who can shoot the ball. If they struggle shooting, even slightly from what they have been at this unbelievable clip so far in the playoffs, I don't think they can win the series. I really don't. I think they need these guys to continue to just shoot lights out from the perimeter. And I think the Spurs are just a better team who have a lot more margin of error than the Knicks do. Knicks have a little bit more experience theoretically, but neither team's been to the finals before. The Spurs look composed and mature, and I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I don't think the lights are too bright for them. Wemby's been preparing for this since he was like a little kid, and the rest of the Spurs seem like they're super locked in and believe he's the best player in the world and believe they're going to win. So I don't think Knicks have much of an advantage there. I don't think either coach is perfect. I've had real complaints with Mitch Johnson so far, but for the most part, I mean, his track record so far this season is proven. I mean, they do win a lot of games. They're ahead of schedule. So despite me complaining about some usage of timeouts and the inability to get Wemby the ball under the basket, clearly he's been successful. So I don't think there's much of a coaching advantage there for the Knicks. I like Brown. I think he's a pretty good coach. Sometimes I think people give him too much of a shtick. I think his past, if you want to call them failures, haven't really all been his fault. I think some of the teams that he coached weren't very well built. But I don't think he's like Eric Spoelstra here. I think he has some flaws too. But I think for the most part, both teams are going to be pretty well prepared. They're going to be composed. I'm just really excited to see how this goes. Obviously, I think this is a dream matchup for the league. Uh, we have Wemby, who's going to be the face of the league. He is he's starting to enter that rare space where non-basketball or even non-sports fans know who he is and care. Like when he just looks like an alien out in the court. They're like, "Whoa, we've never seen this before." He's starting to enter like the LeBron, Jordan, Curry with how he changed the way that sport was played. He's starting to get to that level where everyone, even if they're not a big fan of the sport, if it's on TV, they're going to be like, "Whoa, what's happening there?" They're going to tune in. And then the Knicks, obviously, first time in the finals in forever. New York's going to lose their mind if they win. I mean, these games, the atmosphere in MSG is going to just be phenomenal. I feel like the crowd's going to be a little interesting there, though, because I think if they jump out to early leads or they're winning these games and playing well, I imagine, like any crowd, but especially there, I think the crowd's just going to be on a different level. But I think they're going to have this nervous energy there where if the Spurs come out shooting hot, like they have some of these games in the OKC series, and they get up like 15, 20 points, I think that crowd's going to be dead silent. And sometimes it's tough to play at home where the crowd's behind you, they're pushing you forward, you feel the momentum when things are going well. But when things don't go well, and all of a sudden that crowd becomes dead silent and you feel like a lot of pressure, it's going to be fascinating to see how Knicks handle that. I think both cities are going to be ready for this. They're going to put on a great show. I think the fans are going to be phenomenal. These are two meaningful franchises for the league, which is cool. Last year was a bit of a bummer with Pacers Thunder. I mean, you could not find two less relevant cities in terms of just eyeballs. New York's the biggest city in America, probably a minimum fourth most important franchise in the league, maybe fifth. You could argue as high as third. Uh, so people are going to watch, which I think is good. A lot of people complain about the NBA. It's the rare sport where the average especially person who covers the sport, like the media personality, spends 90% of their time shitting on the sport and complaining about it and saying, how it's broken and trying to come up with solutions to fix the problems. I don't think the sport's as broken as people think. I mean, the NFL and football is just going to dominate. It's a scarcity thing. There's just less of the game, so every game means more. It's easier to bet on it. Um, I mean, you're theoretically competing with it, but you're not. Everyone's competing for second. So if every single sport is going to get held up to the NFL or like soccer on international level, then you're going to fail. But basketball still does very well. They just got a huge media rights deal. Clearly, TV executives still feel this is a sport growing and that there's high upside here. I think women's basketball is incredibly positive. People are watching that more. I just think basketball is in a pretty good place. And as much as people complain, there's nothing like NBA playoffs. Watching these incredible stars where individuals matter so much in basketball, where one player can basically single-handedly go win a series, win a game. There's those moments are just unlike anything. And I'm really excited that we're going to have a big, meaningful NBA finals where it feels like there's more at stake than just who's going to be the champion. It feels like there's legacy stuff here. Like if Wemby wins now, he enters a really unique list of guys who have won this early in their career, who are this good. This team looks like it's only going to get better. They're going to have this rivalry with the Thunder for years to come, because last year we said the same thing about the Thunder, that they were going to win the next 5 championships. I think we're going to have this two-headed race in the West. I think it's going to be an arms race there. Thunder are going to have to make some decisions about who they want to keep, if they're going to go all in and maybe trade some of these, maybe like a Jalen Williams or a Chet to go get more picks or a different type of star. If they're going to go in the second apron here and pay the huge luxury tax to keep this team together and therefore kind of limit what changes they can make, or if they're going to move off of guys like Hartenstein or Lou Dort and who they're going to pay. They're going to have to pay Kassan Wallace this summer. The Thunder have big decisions to make, but they have a lot of assets, a really good young team, so they're not going to go anywhere. Where the Spurs obviously have a lot of mobility as well. They can make changes, and they look phenomenal, and they're young. So there's just big, long-term ramifications out of who wins this finals. And if the Knicks win, obviously they're going to break a super long drought of championships. New York, that city will explode. I mean, they're going to lose their minds. Especially I feel like if they win game 6, if they're leading 3-2 going back for that, if they win in that game 6, I just think that city's going to burn down. The excitement there is going to be insane. But then if the Spurs win, Wemby wins, and then France will have a big year. I think France is probably going to win the World Cup potentially, so they could have Wemby win, and then like a month later, France wins the World Cup. Big year for them. I just think there's a lot of storylines coming out of this finals. I'm going to make my pick here. I could see the Knicks winning. I'm just going to say I think the Spurs are going to win. The Knicks, I think, are a little overrated. But with that being said, this streak they're on of how well they're shooting the ball and how efficient they are offensively. They are historically teams that do this go on to win the finals. They're in pretty rare air right now with how well they're playing. I know they beat the Spurs twice in the regular season. I believe twice, or maybe 3 times actually, because they played once in the NBA Cup. 2 or 3 times, excuse me. I just think this is a new Spurs team. I think the way they've grown up. First off, Harrison Barnes was starting for them back then. This is he barely plays. He plays less than 10 minutes a game now. This is an entirely new team. Dylan Harper's on a different level. Steph Castle's far more confident. Wemby is the best player in the world. The way that they're shooting the ball at times, like when they get hot, and there's just no touching them. They're able to just grind you down defensively and really make it tough to get good shots. I'm a little concerned that they're going to be able to make it pretty Jalen Brunson-centric, where they're going to let him get his shots and make him make tough shots, but they're going to kind of force the ball to be stuck to him. They're not going to get good ball circulation here. And where they're going to get wide open threes and Cat's going to get those kind of pick and pop threes. I think they're going to leave it in Jalen Brunson's hands, make it tough for him. He's a smaller guard. He's done this before, but I do think you can wear him down. The Spurs are going to have several guys they can throw at him. They can throw Carter Bryant off the bench. Steph Castle can harass him. De'Aaron Fox is quick and twitchy. If he continues to get healthier, I think that's going to be a big deal there. Devin Vassell can do it. Dylan Harper is a good defender. They just have a lot of guys that can throw at him. They're going to have home court advantage. My gut tells me they're going to win in 7 games. I think it's going to be 3-2 Spurs, heading into game 6 in New York. And I could see Spurs winning there, but I think Knicks are going to pull that one out in game 6. I just think that atmosphere is going to be too crazy. Knicks will get hot and shoot well there. And then since recently, game 7s, the road teams won a lot of them. And I think heading back for game 7 in San Antonio, Knicks are going to have momentum. People are going to really talk themselves into New York is going to complete this. They're going to go in and win. And I think San Antonio's going to come out and lay the hammer down. I think defensively, they're going to tighten it up. I could see Knicks really struggling to score in game 7 and Spurs winning a low scoring, but fairly comfortable win in game 7 would be my prediction. But I just think Spurs have more ways of winning. I think they have a larger margin of error. I think Knicks are going to have to shoot the ball at like the outlier clip that they have been, where I think Spurs, I don't think they can shoot poorly in the majority of these games, but I don't think they have to shoot greater than their average to win. I just think they have better players at more spots. I think they're a little deeper. I think they're more physical, which matters at this point. And I think home court probably matters a little bit. I think it's a tough place to play in San Antonio, and I just give them the edge. I think it's their time. I really do. But I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a great finals. I can't wait to see how it goes. I think this finals feels like it means a lot. I've already explained, and I'm just excited to see how it goes. I'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. I'm sure you're aware, or if you're not aware, honestly, lucky you. New York's quarterback Jackson Dart recently introduced Trump at a New York rally. And, I think rightfully so. Abdul Carter on Twitter basically just wrote, like, what are we doing, bro? And then, that stirred up a bunch of angry right-wing people. And he later, they met. Apparently they discussed it. There's that picture of them kind of dapping each other up at practice, and they both spoke to the media. And I thought Abdul Carter was extremely, I thought his statement was very well worded. I thought he was relatively respectful. He far more respectful than I think he even needed to be. I think he made his point. I'm glad he didn't back down though, like a lot of people have. And people on the right have just been losing their minds. They called him like a child, and they are so mad that some dude dared to speak out against Donald Trump. And some of these guys who say that, why can't we leave politics out of sports? Politics dominate our life. We shouldn't have that in sports. Abdul Carter, in case you haven't noticed, is a black guy. He's also Muslim. In case you haven't noticed, this country right now isn't exactly, especially the Republican Party, the most open or the most kind to black people or people of practice or, any religion outside of Christianity, but especially not to Islamic people. And at a time when literally they're stripping away the voting rights of people, of black citizens, essentially, in the South, going back to Jim Crow era, pre-voting rights, but we're going back to like the pre-Civil War era in the South, with where they want to take us, to have their nerve to come out and say, like, leave politics out of sports. everyone should get to have an opinion. I, no problem with Jackson Dart going and sharing his opinion and expressing his support for Donald Trump. He should get to do that, but he's not protected from criticism. You absolutely, you should not be prevented from getting to speak your mind, but you get to be criticized. And when Abdul Carter speaks his mind, you should have the same attitude towards both. They should both get to say it. And to act like he's a child and to say he's a petulant child, as some people have said, including Boomer Eisen, who does the CBS NFL coverage. I mean, he's stupid. Whenever you hear him speak, you lose brain cells. He knows nothing about what he's talking about in the NFL. He wasn't overly successful. And the nerve he has calling out Abdul Carter as a quality of football player, given his career, is shocking. And some of the people who have come out and said, who tried to make this an issue about Abdul Carter's quality as a football player, who are completely missing the point of what he said when he said he feels he owes it to himself and the religion he believes in and what he believes in to speak his mind about why he thinks Donald Trump is bad and why he should not represent the values of the New York Giants and why he disagrees with his policies and who he is personally. That's not about football. It's bigger than football. So when these guys try to make this about football, bring up Abdul Carter's football success or saying that or I'll read you Boomer's statement in a minute, trying to bring up his character about his on-field success or lack thereof, even though I think he's a phenomenal player. He's one of the best athletes I've seen come off the edge in a long time. I think he's going to be a super successful player. I think criticizing him as a player is insane. I think he's a lot better at his position than Jackson Dart is at quarterback. But that's not really the point of this. The point was two people discussing their political views. And first off, Jackson Dart brought politics into the sport. So you can't say Abdul Carter brought politics into the sport. You can't say leave politics out of the sport and not criticize Jackson Dart. Secondly, politics is everywhere. It matters to people. Black people cannot vote anymore in the South. Their voices do not matter. They can show up and vote, and they're in plus 80 red districts. It's impossible for there to ever be a Black representative in the South, at least in the short term, again. Like, we're kind of at the look through the looking glass time here, people. Like, no old white dude gets to go out and criticize a Black guy for expressing his issues with Donald Trump when they're stripping away his rights. 60%, roughly 60% of SEC, the Southern elite college football teams, their rosters are Black. And how much money those Southern schools make off of Black athletes and how much joy those Southern inbred fools all have every Saturday cheering on a bunch of kids who they then strip away their voting rights, who don't give a shit about them personally, who actively want to hurt them, who do not want to let them vote, but have no problem rooting for them to get their brains bashed in every Saturday. To have the nerve to come out and say, leave politics out of sport, when your guy went out to a Trump rally, over 50% of the NFL is Black. It means something a little more to them when their personal rights are being attacked by your orange, racist, bigoted, stupid president. Shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. You guys are actually brain dead. Any single white dude who wants to come out here and criticize Black people for having a problem with Donald Trump or speaking their minds at a time when the gerrymandering in the South is going back to the Jim Crow law era, what are we doing? And let me read you what Boomer said. This is after he called Abdul Carter like a child. He basically said, there's Jackson Dart's a man and Abdul Carter's a child with how he handled this. And people, rightfully so, criticized him, said that's kind of racist or it's just stupid. And this is what he had to say in his defense. He says, it's amazing how people just take what you say. Yeah, people tend to listen to what you say and then believe you at your word. And basically, I was pretty harsh on Abdul Carter for a reason. If you are around here and you're following the Giants and you saw what Mike Kafka, the former interim coach for the Giants, ended up having to do to make an example out of Abdul Carter with the way he was acting, that's part of his story with the New York Giants, which was completely underwhelming. And this is a guy who was looking for number 11 because that was his college number, I guess. Then he was looking for number 56. The guy is completely clueless for what's the thing that he was asking for when he first got there. Great grammar, by the way, buddy. None of those things have to do with what he's talking about. You didn't like him because he wanted to wear some New York Giants Legends jersey numbers? Okay, fine. That's a perfectly fine critique if you want to. That has nothing to do with what is happening right now. Like, absolutely nothing. No one can debate him on the fact because Donald Trump is an irredeemable, horrific person who's stupid. He's not accomplishing anything for the country. There's nothing going well. And your slaver inbred ass is too mad to listen to a guy who can actually put 3 sentences together but happens to have darker skin than you'd like when you're stupid fake tan Jackson Dart and all of you guys who are so insecure about your stupid fucking party that's about to get whacked in the midterms that you try to bring up his career as a football player when that was not at all the discussion we're having, who, by the way, is far more successful on the field than Jackson Dart is, had a far better college career, went higher in the draft than Jackson Dart did, is probably higher on the priority list. If you remove position, he's better at his position than Jackson Dart is. There's just nowhere you can win this argument. So you have to bring up the fact he wanted to wear jersey numbers from some former New York Giants legends. Really? That's where you've taken this conversation. And the notion when you're offended that people take what you say, you said it. He, out of his mouth, it's crazy how people take what you say. Yeah, man. When you say something, people tend to take what you say. I mean, this is where this is the society we're in right now. People are this stupid and this sensitive that when their irredeemable president, who's running this country terribly and who's gotten us into a war with no way out of, inflation's going up, he's not lowered prices on anything. People in Iowa are now paying $5 for gas. This isn't California where we're used to $5. People in Iowa's brains are going to explode if they have $3 gas. You're going to lose the midterms. And this is the area you want to fight on. You're trying to build a ballroom with taxpayers' dollars. You're trying to prosecute your political enemies. You have a sludge fund for people who attacked the Capitol. This is where you're spending your energy. And the people who want to defend him, the area that they're going to pick a fight right now is with a football player criticizing his teammate for supporting Trump. Good luck, guys. Good luck trying to hold on to the House and the Senate. Maybe you can pull off the Senate because of how much you've cheated and gerrymandered these states, but have fun. Have fun. You know, there's a chance you can cheat the Senate because, a lot of these states are run by Republicans and they control the legislature and the governor's mansion. And there's a chance that you can disqualify some of these votes. Obviously, Trump trying to limit who can vote by mail. There's a chance in the Senate you're able to cheat your way to holding on, but you're going to get screwed in the House and you're going to lose in 28, even with the cheating. And the fact that this is where you're going to die on this hill right now in the dying breaths of the Trump administration. This is where you're going to make your last stand on Abdul Carter criticizing Jackson Dart for being a Trumper is mind blowing. And your unwillingness or inability to even engage in the conversation where Abdul Carter was criticizing Trump. He didn't criticize Jackson Dart as a football player, but because Trump is so, so, so terrible at his job and so unqualified, you obviously can't support him. So you have to try to attack Abdul Carter as the football player. I just think that's really, really pathetic and embarrassing. And I hope it alarms people and opens people's eyes up to what's happening, in particular in the South with the gerrymandering and trying to strip away Black people's voting access and voting rights, and this whole anti DEI, which is really just anti Black. Um, I mean, we are going back to a time when a pre-civil rights, pre-voting rights and civil rights act of the 60s. And that's just a scary place to be in. And more people need to wake up to the fact that uh, it's just blatant racism. Forget even partisan lines of, gerrymandering, and you can debate what California did. And they're just blatantly trying to strip away Black people's access to vote. And these southern states, which are so poorly run, they have no economy. The only thing that they have going for them is that they have good college football teams, some of them, who are entirely reliant on Black athletes to use their bodies physically and be willing to watch their brains get mashed into mashed potatoes every Saturday and Sunday. And then to not even let them have healthcare access or not even let them vote for their own representative. And then get your panties in a bunch when someone criticizes Jackson Dart for going to a Trump rally. These people are just so pathetic. And I hope people realize that and understand just how scary it is, the time we're at right now, but also just to laugh at them for a second. And sometimes you should get frustrated like I just did, but also you can remember just these guys are such losers. And it's okay just to laugh at them because, like, what the fuck is happening? These people, they really are deplorables. You know what Hillary Clinton said in 2016 when she said they're deplorables and everyone got mad at her? She's right. These people fucking suck. And most of them are irredeemable. And no one should care what they have to say. These people's brains do not work, and fuck them. Let's gerrymander the shit out of them in the blue states. That's all I have to say. And go. Abdul Carter, I thought you gave a very, very well worded, I thought pretty unifying response there. He said he doesn't have a problem with Jackson Dart personally, he has a problem with what he believes in. And, that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to think so. Now, to flip this, right after the break, I'll be discussing some of my frustration with how some people on the left are discussing Graham Plattner and recent allegations against him. Right, welcome back. I'm sure if you're highly engaged in this quite annoying primary fights happening for the midterms and already starting for 28, quite frankly, I'm sure you're aware of Graham Plattner in Maine. I'll just be frank. He's not my style of guy. I don't want some cultural revolution here. I'm not a socialist. I'm a capital D Democrat. I'm pretty normal here. So I'm not down for all of it. But I think he's a pretty interesting candidate. Um, I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win by a lot, honestly. I think he's going to kill Susan Collins. And I think, he won the primary. I support him. I'll vote blue no matter who. I support him 100%. I hope he wins. Hope he wins by a lot. Hope he's successful as a senator. Hope he gets good things for the state of Maine. But at a time when people on the progressive left crucify, they call establishment Democrats, they spend more time attacking them than they do Republicans every day. At a time when they are just utterly ruthless, there's nothing like Kamala Harris or Pritzker or Newsom or anyone can do without the left shitting on them and attacking them. Even some of whom have phenomenal progressive track records and have advanced more progressive bills and changes to their state than Bernie or AOC or Elizabeth Warren or like Newsom and Pritzker have done more for their states than any of the others and more progressive policies they've enacted in their states than Bernie or AOC or any of the others have done. So, fuck off. But secondly, if they're going to be so aggressive at attacking them and using personal attacks, they have no problem bringing up, personal baggage and using that against people that they don't like, or this quote unquote, moderate sellouts, as they call them. Then this reporting that Plattner's wife basically flagged early on to his campaign that that Plattner was sexting with other women, basically explicit texts you sent. And the fact that this is now being reported or coming out, and she's like throwing a hissy fit saying like how unfair it is that these reports are coming out and people are talking about this. Like, welcome to the big leagues, dude. This is how it works. You're going to get oppo dumped on you. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to attack everyone and use personal, attacks and bring up their character against people you don't like. And then when it's reported that your dude was sexting with other women, now you're going to throw a hissy fit and be like, it's so unfair. This is what people are talking about. This is how politics has always worked. This is how it is. He's not my style of candidate, but he won. Congrats. I support him. I hope he wins. That is what it is, though. Like, you don't get to play by a new set of rules. People are going to attack people personally in politics. It's the name of the game. It's how it works. Story old as time. Like, you're not going to win. The progressives are not going to have this national massive surge here if they're going to freak out every time someone attacks their guy. Or not even attacks them, just reports the facts. This isn't even they weren't even offering judgment on this. It just became a report that she herself flagged it to the campaign in order to get out ahead of it. So clearly you thought this was going to be an issue, and you knew it was going to be an issue. So like what's happening? There's nothing everyone gets attacked. This is how it works. You have to be prepared for that. And you have to win anyways. You don't get to throw your arms up in the air and be like, oh, this is so unfair. What are we supposed to do here? Win. Go win. Go attack Susan Collins. Go win. No one wants to listen to a bunch of whiny babies complain about how unfair it is. We have to win. That's the problem. We lost the election because people thought we were weak. Point blank, period. We need to win things. Okay? So grow up and let's go win. Secondly, my last point here. Wherever you fall in this Israel Gaza situation, whether you want to completely cut off weapons, sanction Israel, want to support defensive aid, if you're all the way, which I disagree with, and you think we should give unconditional aid, I think that's stupid, whatever. Wherever you are, let's just know what you're talking about and be honest here. The people who attack candidates who say, I'd support defensive aid, but not offensive aid, that you're welcome to attack them and say, I think that's wrong. I think defensive aid allows Israel to have a security blanket here, which allows them to act, as you might say, recklessly in other countries. That's a fine position. My issue is when these people on the left who no fucking idea what they're talking about in military terms, well, no, like there's no difference between offensive and defensive weapons. That's not true. Tomahawk missiles are long-range offensive weapons. Tamir interceptor missiles are half the size and are explicitly designed to intercept incoming missiles. They're different weapons. The arsenal is different for offensive and defensive weapons. They're actually different. They are. So you can disagree with sending defensive weapons, but stop acting like it's disingenuous when politicians say, I support defensive or offensive weapons. That's their position. You can say you disagree with it, but there actually are differences between the weapons and what they can be used for. So when people like Jennifer Welsh and these lefty commentators are like, there's no difference, there are. There literally are. Look it up. Learn one thing about what you're talking about, and you'll understand. There actually are factually differences between the weaponry that can be used for long-range offensive targets and interceptor missiles. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm going to lose my mind. Thank you. Stay tuned Thursday for my next episode.